Okay, doke. So we're back again. Good evening, everyone, wherever it is you're joining me from. And my name is Chinonso Clark. Okay, I can see a message from Tolulope. My name is Chinonso Clark anyway. And we're hosting a conversation in commemoration of International Women's Month. And we have a series of conversation where we're featuring different women across Africa, both in Nigeria, women who are leading for impact. So we have today, we on the first episode of our conversation, we have Tolulope Gbenro. We also have next week and the week after, every Monday at 7 p.m. We're just discussing how we're leading for impact as women, and this conversation is just to encourage more people to lead for impact, encouraging more women to also step up as we push and accelerate the implementation of the SDGs in Africa. And I can see that Tolulope has joined, so I'm just going to yes, I think I've sent her an invite. I've sent you an invite, and I hope that you're able to join shortly. Today we're having Tolulope Gbenro, and she's a social impact advocate. She's passionate about positive change and making impact in relation to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. She's actually also focused on SDG 13. I've seen that she has such an experience, even from her university, leading, volunteering. One of the things I can say for sure is that she's passionate about impacting her society as it were through whatever portfolio it is that she's involved in. Just give me a moment. Okay, I hope that you're able to join us now, Tolu. I hope you're able to join us now. Yes, sent you an invitation. Let me know when you're able to come on. And so we're excited to be having a conversation with her today. Our conversation with Tolu will be focused on education for impact. How does education, or what is the role of education when it comes to the subject of impact, when it comes to the subject of advancing the SDGs, and when it comes to the subject of leading for change? Like I said earlier, her commitment to leading for impact and change through our work portfolios is worth celebrating as a young female leader. I can see that we're having a bit of technical glitches. I'm going to try and send, or maybe you should try and request to join, because I actually sent you the invitation, and what I have here, it's I can't even click on it. So you want to try? Can you try and send me an invitation, please, if possible? Yeah, if possible, try send an invitation. Okay, I can see that. Oh, that page or not. Anyway, I hope that that's been sorted now. I sent another invitation. Hello, Grace. Thank you for joining us. I was just saying that Grace is going to join us in a couple of weeks as we have. Yay! Super excited to have you. That was just the longest 7 minutes of my entire day.
Sorry about that. I tried to join with my laptop, but I couldn't find the invite, so I just decided to use my phone instead. Yeah.
Right. I don't think I wanted to join my laptop as well, but I wasn't too sure. I've never done an IG Live, to be honest, on the laptop. I always use my phone, but I'm super excited to be having this conversation with you today, Tolu, and I hope that you can hear me clearly, loud and clear. I can see that it's buffering a bit. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Please just give me a minute and I'll be back.
Oh, awesome. Anyway, while we wait for Tolu, I'll tell you just a bit about Lead for Good Africa. We are a leadership development, training, and impact consulting social enterprise. Our vision is to eradicate poverty in Africa, and then also elevate the quality of life on the African continent. Basically, what we're doing at Lead for Good is to encourage more young people and also serve underserved communities, as it were, and then providing programs, capacity building programs, and impact consulting to ensure that individuals or beneficiaries of our programs develop the skill required to overcome poverty. One of the challenges that we see as being the effect of poverty, as it were, is knowledge deficiency, a lack of self-awareness, inability to lead ourselves, a lack of personal leadership competencies, as it were. So you find that a lot of people who grew up in low to middle income homes struggle when they are placed in certain situations to lead themselves. And when they're unable to lead themselves, it further contributes to the problems that we complain about on the African continent. So what we're doing as an organization is to build people who can build communities, people who can build a nation, and people who can make meaningful contribution wherever it is that they find themselves in. And so we're focused on 4 thematic areas as an organization: gender equity, and that's why we're excited about our conversation series this month. And we're also focused on education, we're focused on healthcare, we're focused on programs that contribute to poverty alleviation. And I'm super, super excited to have Tolulope having this conversation today with me as we focus on education for impact. Don't forget that the theme of our conversation series is She Leads for Impact. So the first question I'm going to be asking Tolu, if she's ready for me, is I already introduced you, all right? So tell us a bit about your journey. I saw your journey all the way from uni, all of your volunteering activities. Tell us a bit about your journey to developing your passion as an SDG advocate.
All right, thank you very much for the introduction. Sorry, excuse me. So yeah, my journey was not a straightforward one because it wasn't something I wanted to do initially. I attended Covenant University, and when I gained admission to Covenant University, I felt it was a punishment because something happened I know, very weird. Something happened in secondary school that I wasn't comfortable with, and then I had a lot of people from my class in secondary school coming to Covenant. To be precise, we were 13. So imagine having 13 classmates from one secondary school in uni. And I wasn't sure how that was going to affect reputation and everything. And I felt coming to Covenant was punishment by my parents, precisely by my dad. That's how I saw it. So we had a series of conversations, and I also had admission abroad. I had admission to 2 schools abroad, but I didn't go. So I just felt Covenant was definitely that punishment. So my goal was to do 1 year in Covenant, then go abroad and study abroad, which was the initial agreement I had with my parents. But over time, it didn't seem like that was going to work out. So, I mean, I just needed to help them. So my plan was fail, and then by force, they will tell me to leave school, and then they will now make me japa. But yeah, it didn't 100% go well. And then my life was basically almost like, should I say, a ship from class to church, from church to getting food and all of that. And people kept saying, and actors, in your first year, people would come to meet you and say, oh, we have this organization, or join this society, and so on and so forth. So the enactors guys kept coming, and I didn't want to join them, honestly, but my Sundays were really boring. So one Sunday, when I slept and woke up from sleep, I decided to attend one of their meetings and just see how the meeting was going to go. When I got to the event venue, the meeting was already ending, and I was like, okay, cool. So the next Sunday, I actually did set an alarm, and then I went for the enactors meeting, and it went well. So after a while, I decided to volunteer with enactors, and I was not happy. So when it was time for holiday, enactors had this boot camp where students stay back in school. And then I told my daddy I wasn't going to come home, I was going to stay in school. My daddy's like, is everything okay? And so on and so forth. I remember my dad came to visit me in school, and he saw I was actually volunteering. So that was why I picked passion for it. But from my second year, when the enactors team won the national competition and we had to go for the World Cup, I just felt within me that it wasn't proper to attend an international event without actually studying about the SDGs and knowing the 17 of them. So I sat down, I went to Google, I wrote the 17 of them down, and I started memorizing them. And it definitely wasn't an easy task, but yeah, I'm happy I made that decision. And then over time, I noticed that a lot of international organizations were in this space. And you don't have plenty people, thousands of people work in the UN if they are not making money. You don't just do charity. You don't have a lot of people attracted to charity if there's definitely no money in the field. So that's definitely a basis of my experience in enactors. And then I didn't see it as something for reward, because a lot of young people, after the enactors national competition, people kept joining the team, and a lot of people just felt they were going to join, the team was going to win, they were going to travel again for another international competition. Well, the team did win, but there was COVID, so we didn't travel after then for a period of time. And from enactors, there was Holt Prize. I remember hearing about Holt Prize as as a freshman in uni, and it sounded like something for probably big postgraduate students or really intelligent people, and I felt this is something I could do. So in my third year, after we won the Enactors National Competition and went to represent Nigeria for the World Cup in 2019, I saw the application to become a campus director, and I wanted to bring Holt Prize back because I think 3 years before I became campus director, the Holt Prize program in Covenant University stopped completely. So I did put in for the application together with one of my friends who also put in for the application, and then I was selected as campus director. Had to reach out to the pioneering Holt Prize campus director to get access to all the old social media accounts and start building structure. And then over a period of time, from putting up applications for different programs, some organizations have reached out, and that's how I probably got, not probably, that's how I got some of the roles I got with different organizations, working with organizations. So it initially didn't start as something rosy for me. It just started as a side hustle, you can put it that way, just a way to avoid the reality of having to study. But it did help in the long run, because by my second year, I noticed that I had put in so much effort into my work at Enactors, and it was obviously showing. And then my academics were not necessarily reciprocating the effort I had put into my volunteering work. And then I said, okay, this has to change, because in the long run, I'm not leaving this school anytime soon, and then my name is going to be on this result, so I can't keep playing with my academics. And then that's how I figured out a way to balance everything up. So that's how my volunteering journey started.
What a journey! What a journey! You know what? And I think that is a good thing that you've spoken about how you were able to surmount some of the challenges. But because you can tell, it sort of tells me about who you are as a person. So I would ask you, what are some of the values that you think are responsible? Because a lot of the work that we do, we talk about a personal value system. All right. What are some of the values that you think are responsible for your chosen path? You know, you were able to surmount some challenges, you were able to stay focused, you were able to, you know, think about how to balance all your responsibilities and activities at the time. What are some of the values that helped you and that shaped, you know, that journey of coming to where you are today?
Well, I would say passion. Passion is definitely a very big one, because if you are not passionate about the work you do, you can't go far in either the development space or the social impact space. And the team you work on part-time can change. So passion is definitely important. Passion to see a better country, passion to see a better world, passion to just see development or progress in a particular sector or thematic area is definitely one. Next is integrity. People pay money for people that have integrity, and I think my NYSC my NYSC period was one example that showed me that something happened, and I had the opportunity to travel with someone for an event, and the reason I got that opportunity was because I was a person of integrity. Now, it was an event related to, you know, the development space, but I didn't necessarily actually go there as a development practitioner. I went there to count items and to make sure that no item was stolen. It's still funny. Every single time I think about it, it's so funny. So integrity is definitely a very big one. And then I would say impact, right? So impact is progress. Impact is impact regardless of how small, whether you win an award or you don't win an award, because a lot of people, they just dive into this space, they start a charity and then they want to win an award. And the development space is a really dynamic space. Someone can be here for 10 years and not necessarily get the recognition that they deserve, and someone can come in and in 1 month they get more than the recognition that the person that has been working for 10 years gets. So it's a really dynamic space. So I think those are definitely three values that are important.
Wow, so that's passion. We talked about passion, we talked about integrity, and we talked about impact. And I like what you said, that impact is progress. And I think that just bringing perspective in terms of the dynamic nature of the nonprofit or the social impact space, so that people don't feel, because sometimes people they quit too early, right? And that's because sometimes they even come into the development space with a wrong motive.
Exactly.
You know that, you know, there's a wrong motive. Sometimes you think there are a lot of grants there, there are a lot of awards to win, but then when you come into the space and actually realize what's in need, sometimes sometimes they're disappointed, sometimes they quit too early. But I like what you shared about passion, integrity, and impact. So my next question for you would be, so what role did education play in getting you to where you currently are? you think that education had any role at all to, to supporting you or to encouraging you on this path? And if yes, what role did it play so that we can encourage more young people, to look at education as a means of, making impact in society?
Yeah, education definitely played a very important role in my story because I mean I knew people were doing charity, but I didn't necessarily know about the sustainable development goals or the development space as an actual industry or social enterprise as different from just being normal charity. And for some people, their stories are different. You know, you hear people say things like, "Oh, I was born into poverty, and after suffering for so long, I looked for a way out, and XYZ, I found myself doing charity, and I got a scholarship, and I want to start an NGO, and so on and so forth." But in this situation, education played a very important role in my story, and in a different way because for me, it wasn't, the conventional story. I was in an education system or an education environment, and then I had the opportunity to hear about the SDGs and say, okay, I want to actually volunteer. I want to give my time for as long as possible, and then I want to make impact in this space. So education definitely plays a very important role, regardless of the situation or the story. And there's obviously a clear difference between people that are educated and not. I think one of the reasons that my parents actually sent me to Covenant is to learn how to dress, because if I didn't go to Covenant, if I was on this live, I'll probably wear a singlet and then I'll probably just wear a jacket on top. So I think it's part of the reasons and part of the punishment. So it's also part of the roles education plays, because if you know something and you don't know how to communicate it properly, people won't necessarily listen to you. And that's something that education does to people. Education also provides a platform, right? I probably wouldn't have attended an Enactors World Cup event if I was not in an education system that had that program. I probably just have heard about the SDGs and be confused, like, what charity will I join? Because, there are so many of them. Anybody can start a charity. What charity should I join? What cause should I support? How do I start my own, since everybody's starting their own? And then I'll be so confused by the entire system. So education definitely helps a lot in that area, and it does play a very important role.
Right. Education exposes your mind, and it also gives you language for communication. That's and that's really key. It helps you also understand the place that you are in and then love whatever it is that you're rightly. So you're rightly what you need to do, what you need to do in anything random, because you might just start here as well. There's an echo from okay, I think it's still there. Anyway, so how can we create more opportunities and access to quality education for more young people? I know that with the strike in Nigeria, I've heard a lot of young people saying education is not important, right? I've heard a lot of young people say education does not pay the bills, especially now with the culture that with culture as well. Not only young people, some young people not really, some young people do not really need education, and then there's also the other young people who don't have good opportunities for quality education. So how can we create more opportunities? How can we encourage more young to take advantage of opportunities that are able for education, as it were?
All right, so I'll break the question into two. I'll talk about how we can create more opportunities in education. I think it's a multi-layered problem, and it definitely needs a multi-layered solution, right? Because the private sector definitely has their role to play. The public sector definitely has their role to play. And even CSOs and NGOs, we have a role to play. First, I will talk about funding. Education does not receive enough funding in Nigeria, at least that I am sure of. I remember a year where money was released for the renovation of public schools in Nigeria. And it's funny because around that same period, my school was renovated. The total budget that was released for public schools to share, the money that was used to renovate my school at that time was greater than the entire budget. So it just means that those institutions, that's the public schools, are getting peanuts. And there's not much you expect them to do when funding is not adequate and available. Next is capacity. And then by capacity, I'm saying it in sense of population. We say things like quality education, education should be free, everyone should have access to education, but we don't hold our population accountable, and we don't necessarily even have policies for to guide population. The last census in Nigeria was done in 2006. Right? Ideally, the next census should have been done in 2016, but it was not done in 2016. And then in 2023, where we have the election drama and so many more dramas to come that we don't know of yet, we want to organize a population census. So majority of the data we have for people in Nigeria are oftentimes approximated because we're not sure of the population. So in an ideal system, but not even in an ideal system, because this is not an ideal system. In this system, we expect a family with 2 children to send their 2 children to a public school, secondary school, where education should be free for those between, or should I even say primary school, where education, basic education should be free for all. And then you have a family with 11 children, and you want the 11 children to also go to the same primary school with free education. So there's no balance. There's just, so much imbalance in the system that does not necessarily benefit people. Now, bringing it back to capacity and the public institution, there's a limit to which every school can take. But we don't necessarily see that. So we see public institutions giving anybody, Tom, Dick, and Harry, gets admission into the school. Then they do a filter and collect money and say, okay, you didn't pass, you're on probation, you're advised to withdraw. They filter, and students are literally struggling because when so many things happen in school, and then you see the videos from the hostel accommodation that students even have to live with and living conditions, you become concerned. So we have an education system that accommodates people for the money they can make off people, not necessarily for the value they can add off. Next, I'm going to talk about is policy. In Nigeria, we have policies that don't work. We have policies that are inadequate. We have policies that should work but are not enforced. For instance, we have there's this policy on insecurity and education, relating education and insecurity, right? But ideally, we don't even have a standard to say this is what a standard nursery school or primary school should look like. This room I am sitting in right now, in somewhere in Nigeria, it is a nursery, primary, secondary school, and probably has a polytechnic in the same room. So we don't necessarily have the right policies that help in that area. And then relating it in another way, the insecurity policy would say something like the pastor, the imam, the school teacher, that's the head teacher, the principal, they should have meetings together to talk about security situation and so on and so forth. But when you actually take the statistics, majority of these people in school are coppers. I was a core member. I taught mathematics, physics, further maths to SS1, 2, 3 students for 5K, for 5K per month. That was my NYSC life as a core member. So when you have these inadequacies in the system, it definitely affects the quality of education that students get. Now, answering the question, how can we create more opportunities? We can definitely create more opportunities by increasing the funding that goes into education in Nigeria, in all the sectors of education. Next, enforcing the policies we have, reviewing our policies and making the right policies that we need. We can't keep saying quality education when there is no education. So you have schools that they don't even have access to education at all. So how then do you even speak about quality education and so on and so forth? Then answering the second part of the question, how can we create more access to education for young people? I think right now there's definitely an apathy towards education, and it's not really easy to blame young people for that, because the insecurity has definitely affected over 1,000 students in Nigeria in the past 4 years. Over 1,000 students have been abducted from different schools with specific focus on even female children. So definitely a lot of parents would look and say, if I send my child to school and I'm not sure if they're going to come back, then why should I send my child to school? So that's definitely one area. Insecurity is definitely affecting education. Next, like you already mentioned, is culture. We promote so much or so many wrong values that it's probably until this election people are now saying, oh, the wife of XYZ person running for XYZ person is a graduate of XYZ school from XYZ country, and then people are beginning to see the importance of education. There's nothing wrong in being a creative. creative, but we've just not balanced the two properly. We've always rated science students as more important than the art and creative sector. So now we see a lot of people rushing into the creative industry, and even if they can't speak good English, as long as they can do their thing online and they are making their money, or they can sell their hair and they are making their money, they are okay, right? But people don't necessarily think of these things in the long run, because right now we have an older generation occupying office. But what happens by the time that older generation becomes grandparents, and then it is our turn to lead, and we don't even have people that are capable enough to run for these offices? So there's definitely how do I say, the miscommunication, right, in that area. And then having role models in education and promoting people that have actually gone through the school system and rewarding them and saying, oh, XYZ person went through the school system and has done XYZ thing with their life, then people would begin to see the value and understand, okay, this is why we
Think I hope that she comes back on to continue to share some of the challenges that we have when it comes to the topic of education, creating more opportunities for young people. She's spoken about it being a multi-layered problem. I'm just recapping while she comes back on. Yes, you're back on. Do you want to continue from
all
where you
right.
stopped?
Yeah. So if you see a young person today, right, and they want to start a charity, majority of the time the organization they want to start is focused on education. Either they're trying to pay the fees of some young children that can't have access, that don't have access to education, or they're advocating for quality education, or they're advocating for climate education, or they're advocating for wash in relation to education, or they're advocating for electricity in relation to education. There's definitely something that's always done in that area. So I would say that the private sector and CSOs are trying, but most importantly, we need to partner with the government, as the public sector, and hold the government accountable. Because if government makes policy, government writes bills, there are laws, and nobody knows what these things are, whether the government is performing or not, we would not know. So we won't be able to judge and say there needs to be an improvement in this area, or this needs to change. So yeah.
That was very brilliantly answered, and you're right in the fact that it's a multi-layered problem and we need a multi-sectoral collaboration to be able to solve it. And yes, the policies, and we need, one of the challenges that we have in Nigeria, as it were, is implementation of policy. We're good at creating policies, but when it comes to enforcing and implementing policies, that's where we still have a lot of challenges as it were, as a nation. So we're hoping that we can hold government accountable. Like you said, there's already an awareness that's going on in the public eye of the citizens at the moment, and so we're hoping that this awareness and the feeling that we were, to hold government accountable, the commitment to hold government accountable. We see it move just beyond the executive arm of government into the legislature, the judiciary, the state government, and then all the ministries that are responsible for ensuring that we move forward as a society. So let's talk about impact. We talked about education. Let's talk about impact. What does impact mean to you? I know you touched on it a bit earlier on, where you said that impact for you means progress, but let's talk about what impact means so that we can encourage more people to live a life of consciousness.
Well, I would say in very simple English that impact is impact. Then breaking it further, yeah. Then breaking it further, I would say impact is making a change, making a visible change in an area that is sustainable, right? Making a visible change in an area that is sustainable. That's impact for me. So it's definitely the little things that matter. It's always the little things that matter. And regardless of what area or what industry you are in and what work you are doing, the impact you are making in that space is not any less than the impact I am making, or than the impact someone probably.
Yeah. Okay. You want to go ahead now? It was just. I hope you can go ahead now talking about impact. Don't tell me you're out.
Is it better now?
Sound? Yes, much better.
All right.
Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so I was talking about impact, and then I said it is the visible change you make that is sustainable. So it's definitely I won't compare, I won't say there's a lot of comparison, but if you make impact in an education field, it's not any less than the impact someone makes in energy or the impact that someone makes in journalism or in the press sector. So that's just my basic definition for impact.
Awesome. Sustainable change, sustainable progress. How can we encourage and equip more people to live a life of conscious impact? So yes, we know that we should earn, right? But like you said, impact is something we do, how we contribute to the development of people or to society nation. How can we encourage more people to live a life of conscious impact?
I think one basic way is this IG life that we are having, by having conversations with young people that are already making impact or doing things that make impact, basically, regardless of their area, regardless of the sector, and definitely celebrating impact, because I think over the last decade, it's a pandemic. Everybody wants to be publicly celebrated, everybody wants to be recognized. So you have so many award ceremonies coming up, right? And it's not wrong to have award ceremonies. It's not wrong to want to be celebrated for what you do, but we definitely need to revisit our value systems, and we need to teach self-awareness, because a lot of these things come from a place of inadequacy, right? Where you feel less of yourself, and then you need people validation to approve of your, like, say, approval addiction. Basically, that's one thing, and it's something that we definitely need to grow from. Talking about a lot of young people that seek validation, because awards are great, but the most important validation is the validation you give yourself. You don't want to keep doing something because of an award, or because of a prize, or because you're going to be popular. So I think if we are able to fix that value system, where we tell young people that regardless of whether you win an award or you don't win an award, what you have done is important, it's valuable, and people appreciate it, and we appreciate you, that's definitely a very big step. Because we think that everybody's going to be on the same list. How do I put it? Maybe some people want to win an award and they want to be on the same list with Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala at the same time. Like, it doesn't necessarily work that way. I think that's, yeah, it's all part of approval addiction. So creating the conscious mindset, encouraging young people to just keep at what they are doing. We could have programs, we could have capacity building sessions, we could have competitions, we could have meet and greet. It's very, very important. I remember a time in Enactors where it was almost a war between different university teams. You would see a university team and another university team, and they were not necessarily talking. And then by the time we won the national competition, nobody told me, but there was a team that had won twice before consecutively, and they had gone abroad twice consecutively. So my own, I decided to reach out to the team leader at the point and say, we just won, but you guys have been here 2 times. What's the procedure like to go out? So collaboration is definitely really important. And in this age, we should not so much be focused on competition. We should look at collaboration to make more impact. So when there's this, when there's the right competition spirit among us, it definitely is going to promote impact among young people.
Wow, that was so deep. I was just smiling. The wisdom that you're embodied is amazing. Because one of the challenges that young people face at the moment is identity distortion. And that identity distortion is what leads to competition, is what leads to approval addiction, and is what causes the need for people validation as well. And so people want to celebrate too early.
Exactly.
It's not done much. The people who are putting the work for years, you want to be at par with them. So we just need to encourage more people. And that's basically what we're doing at Big for Good Africa, teaching people to lead from a place of their identity, to be more self-aware, to reevaluate their personal value system. We talk about the personal value system because that's what's responsible for the impact that you make, how you make the impact with your life, and how you're even able to sustain the impact as you journey, as you make your own personal journey, regardless of the sector that you're in. And then also it helps you rise above the challenges and even go through challenges. When you're sure about your own personal value system, you're sure about your identity, you're self-aware in how you lead, and then you're also clear about your purpose. That's another big deal. To be clear about your purpose so that you're not easily distracted by what other people are doing, or you don't feel like you're missing out, the fear of missing out. Those are some of the things that we see on this journey of living a life of conscious impact. So my next question for you would be, how can we elevate the quality of life on the African continent? I know that we've dropped answers on as we've been, approaching this question, but how can we elevate the quality of life on the African continent? I know education is a major part, but you just throw more light on answering that question.
I was going to say education again because education is so important, right?
Mm-hmm.
An educated society is a progressive society. And next, I would say is promoting local solutions. So we have a lot of local talents that we don't pay attention to, and then you will find one international company, oftentimes from Germany, and then they come and sweep the local talent away. So that's definitely it for me. Education cannot be overemphasized, and as a continent, I still believe we have a lot of work to do in that area, in improving on the areas I have already spoken about earlier, and then creating a balance between the sciences and the arts, because we've not gotten to that point where they positively cohabit. We just, stigmatize and say if you're in science, then you're XYZ. If you're creative, you're XYZ. And even in this age, parents still force their children to study certain courses in university because they think those courses are more productive than others. So,
yeah. Wow. Awesome. Thank you for simply putting that, education makes the society progressive, and we should promote local talent. We should also encourage innovation and both the science and the arts to be able to, because when we look at advanced society, that's what's responsible for their development. So you have the thinkers, you have those who are creators, and they have those who are also in the science, just creating innovation, solve issues, and advance society. So what's your advice for any young person listening to us currently who needs clarity on living a life of purpose and impact?
So I would first of all say purpose is a journey, and just because you have not found it yet does not mean you should stop what you're doing. I would say consistency is very important. So keep at what you're doing, and on your journey, on your way, you will definitely find purpose. Then about living a life of impact, you have to be intentional about what you want to do in terms of impact, because anybody can make impact in any area, in any sector. Impact can be positive, impact can be negative. So you want to have a defined niche on what exactly you want to focus on. And I would say you need to deal with identity crisis. I think at every point in at the point in the life of every successful person, they had to deal with that. For me, I think that was between last year and 2021. Beginning of last year, I sat down and then I told myself, I don't want to make decisions because someone is making a decision. I noticed I was following some people on social media, which is not a bad thing. But I also noticed that the way they were making certain posts, the kind of opportunities they were applying for, were things I started applying for. And then I had to sit down one day and say, okay, Tolu, let's do an audit of your personal brand. Who exactly are you? And I could not complete that audit because what I started writing wasn't me. I started writing the image of someone else that I had been following. And then I had to say, okay, for a period of time, I need to avoid this person. This person's content is not bad, but it's not affecting me in the right way because I am not receiving the content the way I should receive the content. And then I had to say, this is the path I want to follow. Last year, I had over 50 plus rejection letters because of the level of growth I wanted to attain and the kind of opportunities I decided to push for. But it was not in comparison to anybody's opportunity. So when someone sent me an opportunity, I wasn't on a normal day. I probably asked them, are you applying for it? Should I apply because you're applying? But I didn't do that. I said, this is what I want. These are the areas I want to focus on. These are the kind of opportunities I want to focus on. These are the kind of books I want to read. These are the courses I want to spend money and pay for. And then I decided to invest in that and develop in that. One thing I would also say is people are watching. People don't say it, but people are watching. And the older generation is they are always watching. They don't come to meet you and say, Tolu, you are doing well. But people mention your name in rooms that you least expect your name to be mentioned in. And sometimes you can't even trace the person that mentioned that. So one thing you should know is keep at what you're doing. Be consistent about it. And don't do it for the awards because sometimes the awards won't come immediately. I think I've been nominated for a couple of awards. I haven't won anyone yet, right? And one day I sat down to myself and then I was looking back at 2 years ago where I was nominated for some awards and I said, if I was doing what I was doing because of awards, I won't be here. Awards, that's why I said dealing with identity crisis is really important. Awards don't create a validation. So if someone wins an award that I was also nominated for, I would congratulate them freely and then I would go back to the drawing board and I would continue with what I want to do because what makes me happy is the level of impact I attain in my field and not the validation that someone gives me by saying, oh, Tolu, you won an award or this. There's nothing wrong in winning an award. It definitely increases your credibility. But if you decide to focus on that, it will definitely get to you and it would hinder you from doing what you're supposed to do. So
interesting. It's been insightful conversation, just hearing you, getting to know you and also hearing your thought process when it comes to leading for impact and then basically on that topic of education today. So yes, you said that purpose is very, we talked about consistency is important. It's important also to define your niche and to stay in your lane. Just stay in your lane. And that's what I think for young people in this room. And you're right, also in terms of what you encourage young people. And depending on who you follow, you just want to push that you don't take on another person.
exactly.
You know, and then you find that along the line, maybe you're very, this was not my path, you know, and then you've lost some time. So it's always just very important to always do that check within yourself. I encourage you to do that regularly, maybe every month, every 2 months. Where am I at? Who has God called me to be? Who am I now? You know, what are the skills that I need to develop so that I can get to where I need to develop, so that I can get to where I need to be, you know, where I need to, and all of those questions. So we have all of this. Training programs that focus on what we talk about. And I'm so glad that you spoke about the challenges that young people go through, which for me, which helped me realize that our vision and visualization is important. You know, just getting people to begin from a place of identity to read for any kind of basis of identity and to also just continue to overcome the challenges that we have in our society and building their own personal value. I think we've come to the end of our conversation. I feel like we can go on and on.
Yeah.
And that's such a great time because I can't remember last time I had. It's been such an amazing time having this chat with you, and I think I'm going to have an amazing time having it. But I'll let you know when that will be. So thank you for giving us the time.
Thank you.
I hope that you recommend more young people, you know, our training program. All right.
So bye everyone. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching the replay, we'll have another session next week Monday. And I think we have Manuela, or I don't remember who we have now, but we have 5 days across Mexican continent, just sharing their journey and their story about how they're leading for APAC. And I hope you're encouraging you in the journey as well. For developing the personal leadership required for APAC. So good night, and you don't want to say what you want. Bye, Tolu.
Bye.
Bye.